The NFL draft was over this past weekend, or so, Thursday, Friday, leading into it. And it was a pretty eventful one. We had not as many quarterbacks as usually go, maybe not the quantity of talent, but it was a really deep class. Still a super interesting first round, some interesting trades in there. And we'll just kind of jump right into it. We'll kind of go all over the place in terms of some of the storylines that happened, just kind of recapping all of it. We're not going to hit on every pick, but we will hit on some of the more intriguing ones to talk about. And I think starting that number one, the most interesting player in the draft, a player that we've kind of never seen anybody like in the NFL, and that is Travis Hunter. Is he a receiver? Is he a corner? Who knows? Because he can do.
He didn't go.
He
first
can do
overall.
both. He didn't go. No, he didn't go first overall. But he is, I think, the most interesting player to talk about.
Oh, okay. No, you confused the graphic guy over here because you said first overall. So now we're not getting photos. None for Travis.
Don't worry.
His face is
going
to stay behind the lines.
We will talk about Cam Ward, but I'm going to contribute to what everybody else is doing and not talking about him because we kind of knew that he was going to get picked. And immediately his pick kind of got upstaged by this huge trade that happened where the Browns were in position to draft Travis Hunter, but instead the Jacksonville Jaguars under new GM James Gladstone moved up, giving up a haul to get Travis Hunter, trading the number 5 overall pick that they had, their second round pick this year, number 36, including a 4th round pick this year and next year's first for them to the Browns for number 2 overall to select Hunter, a 4th round pick, and a 6th round pick. So in essence, swapping ones, the Jags throw in another 1 and a 2. It's kind of a huge price.
Oh, yeah.
But for a guy like Hunter, it might be worth it. What do you think?
Well, that's definitely the tough thing. It definitely puts a lot of pressure on Hunter to succeed if that wasn't already there. I don't know. It's funny because I've seen all different, both sides of the spectrum when it comes to responses to this. I had one friend message me and just say, "Holy crap, the Jaguars overpaid." That is a massive overpay. But I also get why a lot of Jags fans are super excited for this because they potentially got a generational talent in Hunter. If he ends up living up to everything that supposedly he's supposed to be, he could be the big thing in Jacksonville for a long time to come. But obviously there's a lot of risks to it. You are potentially giving up a very high pick next year, depending on how good you are, right? That is certainly the risk. Because I don't think, obviously they weren't very good to get, I believe their original pick was the 5th overall, right? They weren't very good in the first place last year. So if they repeat that, and Travis Hunter maybe starts a little bit slow, that trade is going to start to look bad really, really fast. But on the other side of things, if Travis Hunter ends up being the big thing that was missing, the final piece, and that first round pick ends up falling later on in the draft, I don't think they're going to care as much. Then it works out, right? But it's a lot of pressure on Hunter for sure. If I know it's already there. He is the type of player that we have not seen in a very long time since the likes of Deion Sanders. So the pressure is definitely on. If it wasn't, I think if this trade just makes it harder, right, on Travis Hunter for sure, at least in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know if it makes it harder on Travis Hunter as much as it does to put a ton of pressure on this new Jags administration. You know, new coach in Liam Cohen, new GM and James Gladstone. Yeah, I mean, if Travis Hunter goes to the Browns, I think there is still some of that same pressure. He's still a number 2 overall pick, whether there's a trade or not. But yeah, no, for the Jags, it's kind of the move where I think they talked about it as kind of reintroducing themselves to say this isn't the old Jags. They're going to go up and they're going to be aggressive and they're going to get this player. And there's quite a bit of back and forth on it, like you said, where it's like, is it an overpay if he becomes this 2-way player, or if he is the Ohtani of football, then you don't blink, like you don't think twice about it, right? But it's incredibly difficult to say that it's going to translate. He said that he'll quit football if he doesn't get to play both ways, so I'm sure they'll give him time on both sides of the ball, but it's probably going to be not full time on one side. You're playing more snaps in the NFL. You're playing more games. How much does that wear and tear on you, right? Like, there is a lot of questions about it. The talent isn't the question. It's just in terms of how are they going to use him, and what is that going to look like in that Jags offense or defense? The Jags obviously think it's going to work out. The one thing I wanted to pull up, I don't know if you've heard the speech that the Jags GM gave in Travis Hunter's introduction press conference.
I did not.
You can tell how much they believe in him. I'll just say that. Let me read you this, and just picture it's like
Reading
a
the
Hollywood
gospel.
movie, like the climax of a Hollywood movie where the action hero has come in to save the day, and he's just like this big, like, movie-ending speech. As we sit here, Travis Hunter is a Jacksonville Jaguar, and really what comes to mind for me, thinking about the sport of football and the power of the game itself, is its capacity to ignite belief. Belief in ourselves, belief in others, belief in achieving what many may deem as impossible. Travis Hunter, he embodies belief. He is a rare person, a rare player, but he is also a reminder that the boundaries on the game of football were built to be changed. And so the decision to select him was actually a statement for how we plan to move, for who we are. And we want him to be nothing more than him, because when he is, he elevates the space around him, from the football field to the city to the game of football itself. Travis Hunter is who we have been hunting. Couldn't be more jacked, just sitting right here beside him, and then he introduces him. It's just like, okay, buddy, like, talk about pressure. I mean, you really are talking about him like he's the second coming of Christ. Like, I mean,
that's literally
he's gonna
what
change the boundaries of football. Like, my God.
Yeah, dude just needs to start walking on water, and he's pretty much got he's got the rest down.
Yeah, no, seriously. Yeah, no, if there wasn't any pressure before, that did it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, again, like, when you're involved in a trade like that, it just brings up the pressure, right? Like, again, I totally agree with you. No matter what, it was going to be there for Travis Hunter. But I think the fact that Jacksonville has completely pushed all their chips in just adds even more, right? Like, if there could not be more pressure on Travis Hunter at this point. My question, because we've talked a lot about Jacksonville, we've talked a lot about Travis Hunter. I'm more curious what you think about the Browns side of things. Because obviously, if you do think that Travis Hunter is this generational player, they just passed on him. They had the chance to take him, and they said, no, we're good. What do you think on the choice by them to trade away the pick?
Again, if he becomes the Ohtani of football, it was a dumb decision. But knowing what you know now, if I have to make... Because, again, with any draft day trade, it's always you got to hedge your bets to say we don't know what's going to happen in the future. But that's no fun. If I had to make proclaim it right now, I would say that the Browns win the trade, just because in terms of where both teams are at, I do think it makes sense for both of them. Jacksonville was a disaster last year. They were a complete dumpster fire. But they have pieces. They have a good quarterback. They have a talented receiver in Brian Thomas that's shown a lot of promise. They have pieces on defense. Again, this team, Jacksonville, was a year away from... They're a couple years removed from their playoff comeback. They've always kind of been in the hunt before last year when the bottom kind of fell out. They have the pieces to make it work. So adding a player like Travis Hunter, it makes more sense to kind of revitalize things and to say, okay, this is where we're heading now. We have the pieces to just kind of go. But with the Browns, that's a lot more of a project. You don't have a quarterback, right? The combination Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, Deshaun Watson on one leg, and so other players we'll get to, it doesn't exactly inspire confidence. And while you have players like Myles Garrett, and there's talent throughout that roster, I feel like they're at a much different point where the Browns are, largely because of the quarterback situation there. And so I think that's why it makes a little bit more. It makes sense for both teams, but I do still like it for the Browns because you're not going to compete this year. For the Jags, it's like there's a potential. There's a road for you to compete this year if things start turning your way. But for the Browns, it's like I don't think there's any chance in hell they compete this year. I feel like you just see Travis Hunter kind of doing everything, but there wouldn't be any wider results, and you kind of get lost in the shuffle. And then where do you go from there? But with this, there's potential for that Jags pick, because there's potential for them to compete, but there's potential for the bottom to fall out again. There's potential that they can. Yeah, there's potential that either the Browns pick or the Jags pick could be top 5. If neither of them are, but if they're still in kind of that top 10 range, you can parcel those picks and trade up for a quarterback.
True.
They've set themselves up well for the future. Browns fans are going to have to grit their teeth through the season, but what else is new? I think they can handle it. I think they did good on this trade.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, by the way. I do think that even if Travis Hunter turns into the player that everybody thinks he's going to be, I don't think that the Browns are going to leave this empty-handed by any means. Because even if Travis Hunter starts off his career really, really strong, there's a chance it's still not enough to will the Jaguars into the playoffs. Or, heck, into a winning season. Like, we don't know what Jacksonville is going to look like next year. There were, like, it's such a hard team to try and pin down, in my opinion, because they underperformed so majorly last year. And we know they have talent. We know that Trevor Lawrence can win football games. It's just, can they put it together? Like, that is the real question, right? So, I mean, if they can do it, great. Awesome. If they fail, then I feel like if they do bad next season, I don't know if people are going to be worried, but I feel like a lot of concerns are going to start coming up for Jacksonville. Because it seemed like they've been the next guy up for the last few years, at least to me. Where I know that going into this offseason, there were some worries around Trevor Lawrence and whether or not he is actually the guy in Jacksonville. I feel like if another losing season probably starts to break, those voices would definitely get louder.
Yeah, and it's to that point about Trevor Lawrence, this move is also a huge vote of confidence for Liam Cohen, because you're kind of assuming that Trevor Lawrence is going to get back to what he was in 2022 when he won that playoff game, if not something more closer to what he was projected to be. And we've seen that with Liam Cohen and how he turned around Baker Mayfield. But it is still a huge vote of confidence to say, we're good, we can make this aggressive move. It's okay to go all in. Because the other part of this, too, is that the player that would have been there for Jacksonville at number 5, Mason Graham, who the Browns eventually took, again, it's a top 5 pick in the draft. Well, it's kind of a tier below those top 3 guys in terms of talent. It's still a great player. Still a position that Jacksonville really needs in terms of bulking up the interior of that defensive line. It's where they've struggled for a while. So, yeah, it's a huge vote of confidence in Trevor Lawrence, in Liam Cohen, to say this roster can win now. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in the future. We should probably move on to other parts of this draft. We will. Where should we go next? Let's go. You know what? Let's just go. Why don't we'll go with the stuff everybody's talking about. Why don't we talk about Shedeur Sanders? Like, come on.
Yeah, let's do it.
We're jumping all over the place from the second pick to the 144th. But it was probably the second biggest storyline of the draft, if not the biggest.
I'd argue it was the biggest. I definitely argue it was the biggest. Because, I mean, if you just look at the reaction, because you got to realize that, sure, when it happened, that Travis Hunter trade was huge, right? That was massive. But that was a one-day thing. People were watching Shedeur fall for, what was it, 2 or 3 days? And everybody was just going nuts. Like, you were seeing, like, personalities from not only the football side of the world, but all across sports reacting to it. And just...
Not just sports, either.
Yeah, like, it's insane. Because, like, as much as, like, everybody was worried going into this year of the fact of being that Shedeur Sanders is a bit of a personality, you don't know necessarily whether you can trust him with your team. I don't think anybody realized how little trust the NFL really had in a guy like that. Because for a guy who, I don't think anybody thought he was going to go top 10, but I mean, there were points where he was in the conversation, right? Like, that's an important thing to bring up. And somehow he fell to the 5th round. That's insane. Like, I cannot personally remember somebody falling that far, ever. Like I might be
Yeah.
totally blanking someone out, but this feels unprecedented to me.
No, I think it is unprecedented. The other one that I can think of in my recent memory was Malik Willis. That was a big fall, but it was nowhere near this big. Malik Willis, it was like he'll probably go in the. It was a similar kind of thing with Shedeur, where going into the draft you think he'll probably go in the first round. There's potential for a team who really needs a quarterback to take a chance on him, and he ended up falling to like the back end of the third. And I was really surprised at that at the time. But this, yeah, no, it is unprecedented in that way. But it's not necessarily like I think it's just a perfect storm of factors coming together, and I think it's with the last name, with all the media reaction around it. When you've got Mel Kiper going on air with Shedeur as his number one player over Cam Ward, and him being like, basically, everybody is stupid except for me because this guy's going to be the next Tom Brady. I don't even know if that's hyperbole. I think he did compare him directly to Brady. But you have all of that, but I think it can be a little bit simpler when you look at it. And so there's a couple of factors here. So to illustrate the first one, you say everybody's talking about this. One of the people who is talking about this is the President of the United States. I don't know if you saw this.
What?
What Trump tweeted about it. Yep. So here's Trump. Trump was up grinding day 2 of the NFL draft, and here's what he said on his own little social media platform. He said, "What is wrong with NFL owners? Are they stupid?" All caps. Deion Sanders was a great college football player and was even greater in the NFL. He's also a very good coach, streetwise and smart. Therefore, Shedeur, his quarterback son, has phenomenal genes, all caps, and is all set for capital G greatness. He should be, and I don't know why he did this, air quotes, picked immediately, all caps, by a team that wants to win, all caps. Good luck, Shedeur, and say hello to your wonderful father. So when I first saw this, I had probably the stupidest reaction anybody can ever have to something like this. Is my thought was, wow, Trump's really not grinding the Shedeur tape, because if he had been, he wouldn't have made the comment about him having phenomenal genes. And I had to take and I'm like, what the hell am I thinking? But no, Trump really wasn't grinding the Shedeur tape, because the Deion genes didn't translate to Shedeur. You kind of assume that because Deion is this athletic, like uber athletic corner, multi-sport athlete, right? That it would translate to his son. But it didn't really. Shedeur is not the kind of quarterback you expect when you think Deion Sanders' son at quarterback. He is like a Kirk Cousins type quarterback. That was the comp that everybody gets. Another comp that I saw was like juiced up Teddy Bridgewater. And it's like those are not the kind of guys that you think about when you think about his phenomenal genes.
That is an awesome ceiling to say a guy has.
Yep.
Juiced up Teddy Bridgewater. That is awesome.
And the podcast that I heard that on, apparently when that person, I don't remember who it was, but when they said that to an actual NFL exec, they said, "Wow, that's really mean to Teddy Bridgewater," which maybe that should have forecasted what happened. But no, so the genes didn't translate. He's more of a pocket passer. Yeah. He's pretty refined. Like he's.
Wasn't the conversation? I remember hearing his. I like Mr. Donald J. Trump. I have not quite watched enough Shedeur Sanders tape.
You and Trump, not tape dogs.
Yeah, me and Trump need to sit down in a room and watch Shedeur Sanders tape. We need to get that done.
Trump needs to up his game tape consumption.
Yeah.
He's got to come up with better NFL draft tapes for truth.
Again,
for next
might
year.
Be talking out of my ass. Feel free to call me out on this one. But I remember hearing that his arm isn't necessarily what you would expect from a guy with the Sanders last name. Like, I remember hearing that while he is for the most part, a pure pocket passer, he doesn't necessarily have the elite arm that you would normally expect from that type of quarterback.
No, he's a distributor. He's a point guard. He can be a system quarterback, and he can be pretty, like, the ceiling is that he's like a league average to slightly above average quarterback. That's why Kirk Cousins, I think, is such a good comparison for him, because it's like there will be times where Kirk Cousins is playing like before he got hurt, where you're looking at Kirk Cousins and you're thinking, oh yeah, this guy could be a top 10 quarterback. It's not like he's doing anything insanely special like a Josh Allen or a Lamar Jackson or a Mahomes or whatever, but he is playing the the position with such precision where it's like, this is great. And that is where Shedeur has potential. But teams may not necessarily want to take a chance on that in the first round. They're the teams, because players like that don't go in the top 10, top 5. Yeah. Players who go in the top 10, top 5, at least now, maybe in like the 90s or the 2000s, like early 2000s, they would. But in the league we're in now, you need the kind of traits. You need to have a certain type of athleticism. You need to be multifaceted, because just being a pocket passer doesn't necessarily work in the way that you would want out of a top 10 pick. So then you go to the middle to the end of the first round for where he's going to go. What are the teams there? You're looking at like a Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh Steelers, last time they did that, they got Kenny Pickett, similar kind of traits, and they got burned, so they're not going to go back there. Giants trade up for Jackson Dart, maybe a little bit more upside if things pan out. Okay, you've gotten past the first round. Most people think, okay, somewhat surprising, but a lot of draft prognosticators would have expected that before going in. But then is where the character concerns come in rounds 2 and 3. Rounds 2 and 3, you're looking for a backup. Rounds 2 and 3, you're not going to start right away. Even guys like Jalen Hurts, some of the successes of that round, did not start right away. It's guys like Russell Wilson, where they do start right away, extremely rare. So you're looking for a backup, and why would you want a backup when immediately you pick him? You come in and you have all this media attention on you, all this spotlight for your backup, the role that is supposed to be you kind of grind along until you got your chance. So that's why he didn't go day 2. Was he a day 2 talent? Could he have been picked in the second round because of his talent? Absolutely. He probably should have been. But there's a certain point once you pass starter potential where teams are willing to take a chance and say, you know what, I'll take the media attention if this makes our team markedly better. Once that had passed, then the most surprising part of the fall happened, and that, I think, was because of the character concerns. So when you take all that together, like, it's surprising, but there is a reason for it. It's not like NFL GMs are colluding, like some people said. It's not like any of this, like, other conspiracy theories that are being floated around. It's an understandable set of factors, even if the result was kind of like mind-boggling in the moment.
Yeah, and honestly, to me, it just sounded like Shedeur Sanders was maybe a little bit more confident than he should have been in the fact that he would get picked high. It seemed like honestly, to me, it sounded like he kind of tried to put all his eggs in a few baskets, and those baskets didn't want him. The floor fell out of those baskets, and suddenly all of those interviews that he bombed, thinking he wouldn't need because he would be available. He would be off the board. Don't got to worry about it. Suddenly, all of those teams are like, we don't want this guy. And yeah, he just completely fell through the floor. When you heard all the stuff that was coming out in those, I believe it was day 2 and day 3, like you said, when the personality stuff started to come out and stuff regarding how his interviews went with teams. I think it started to make a lot more sense because when you're just looking at the talent, you're absolutely right. He seems like a first round to second round guy. That makes a lot of sense. But yeah, the second you hear that he has any personality issues, yeah, you don't want him as a backup. You want somebody who's calm. You want somebody who's going to be ready to come into a game if he needs to be. And you want somebody who's going to be able to hold a clipboard for a year. And I think there are a lot of worries that Shedeur Sanders isn't that guy. He's going to bring a lot of attention. He's probably going to have more cameras on him than your starter, depending on who the starter is. Like, I don't know. I totally get why a lot of teams passed on him. I totally get why a lot of quarterbacks who a lot of people probably would have thought were less talented and had lower ceilings got taken before him. And it's probably just as simple as, if you're choosing who you want to put on a bench for the next year and learn behind your guy and actually be able to get something from that, there's probably a better chance that a Jalen Milroe or Gabriel might be able to learn more from that experience than a guy like Sanders, who might be just basically counting the seconds till he's on the field.
Yeah, and you bring up Milroe, the other side of it, and this again comes to like the ceiling floor conversation, because Shedeur high floor, low ceiling kind of guy. The other reason you take a shot at a quarterback in the second, third round, if you're not looking for them to just be a backup, it's because they're crazy unrefined but have like crazy amount of talent, right? The top 10, top 5 guys, it's like they're more or less refined, or they just have like an insane amount of talent. Where Jalen Milroe, very unrefined, like there's games where You're like, he can't hit the broadside of a barn, but that athleticism though. And that's why the Seahawks took him, right? It's because you hope that in 2 to 3 years he can become something. That's not the case with Shedeur. With Shedeur, it's he's pretty much a finished product. Like, there is not likely going to be a ton of room for growth the same way there would be with a Milroe. So if that's your mindset, like it would be for the Seahawks and a bunch of other teams who are probably interested in Milroe, then you're going to go for a guy like Milroe over Sanders, and it just makes sense. Like, again, as a Seahawks fan, I would have been way more disappointed if they drafted Shedeur than if they drafted Milroe. I think it was the right choice, and that's another reason why he starts to slip. It's just kind of the perfect combination of factors where, yeah, you missed his threshold and then the bottom just falls out.
I think for the Browns, this kind of works out really well because obviously if you do get something in Shedeur, and he does work out, and you got what, again, Mel Kiper thought was the best player in the draft in the 5th round, then, I mean, is this not the best draft in Browns history? Like, I don't know. Like, that's the tough thing when you see talent like Shedeur fall this far, is if he does work out, the guy who grabbed him is going to look like the smartest person in the room. You just, like, bought yourself a job for the next 20 years off this decision, right? And on the other side of things...
or it just balances out the Deshaun Watson trade and you're back to even.
Yeah. Oh, okay, fair. Fair.
One of the best moves in the NFL the last 10 years, and the worst move.
Well, I was gonna say, on the other side of it, in the 5th round, like, what? Like, if he's pissing you off and all the cameras aren't worth it and he's being a pain in the ass, okay, cut him. Who cares? It's a 5th round pick.
Yeah. I totally agree with that, and I wish, with that in mind, I wish he had maybe gone to a team that has a bit of a stronger culture, where, the Browns aren't necessarily the best at that. They don't have the best track record of developing quarterbacks, of just culture in general, of, like any of those hallmarks that you might say could sustain a personality like Shedeur. You've kind of seen them go out of hand, like somebody you brought up before the podcast, Simon, like Manziel. Like, how'd that go in terms of like a culture to bring him in? Where versus like if you think of him going to a team like Bill Belichick's Patriots, if there's any team that could kind of like set him straight. And Bill's done that in the past with some of those guys, who have bigger personalities, but they were able to thrive under the team of the Patriots. That's not going to be the case in Cleveland, and also with how Cleveland kind of handled the draft already, with them taking a quarterback before Shedeur, and then taking another one, and there was no quarterbacks picked in between them. They just basically picked 2 quarterbacks in a row, which is just strange. And if you look at the footage from the draft room when they pick Shedeur, it looks like Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry have guns pointed at their head. That's how happy they are to take Shedeur. So people think it may have not been their choice. It may have been an owner thing.
Well, obviously they wanted to listen to their president. They had to get Shedeur off the board. So I don't know. They were just doing they were doing their duty as citizens, one could argue.
Yeah. It's Brown Super Bowl.
Yeah.
They're all going to the White House. Nobody's dropping out of that one, apparently.
Oh, God. I still
no.
think
Yeah.
I can't get over that. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. No.
It's incredible.
No, that's probably a good place to end the Shedeur talk. We can kind of get. Those are probably the 2 biggest ones, but there are some more interesting things that happened. I think
we've talked about
the Falcons
3 guys,
are probably.
It's been 30 minutes.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, like that's kind of the whole. Those were the big stories of the draft.
True.
We can rip through these a little bit quicker. The Falcons, I think, were an interesting team, especially in the 1st round. So the Falcons, the edge rusher has been a need for like 20 years, and then they are lined up perfectly to take an edge rusher. I think like Dallas Turner was the pick last year. They're all set up to take an edge rusher. That's where everybody has them mocked as going, and then they fuck it all up and take Penix. I mean, good in hindsight, obviously. I mean, good in any sight, really. But look, we're too early for that. But They missed on that last year in terms of getting a edge rusher. This year, they say not again. Not only do they get Jalen Walker with their 15th pick, they trade back into the first round to take another edge rusher in James Pierce. Now, on its head, that's like, wow, look at Atlanta going out and addressing their biggest need in a big way. On the other hand, to trade up to pick 26, they gave up their first rounder next year, which is kind of insane.
That is insane.
So the Falcons got LA's first rounder this year to pick James Pierce and their third rounder in exchange for Atlanta's second round pick this year, their fifth round pick this year, and their first round pick, a seventh round, and then their first round pick next year. What do you think on that? Just on a first kind of reaction to it. You get a position of need, but you give up a first for pick 26.
I mean, it feels like you're putting a little bit too much duct tape on the hole, you know? Like, I get it. You want to make sure that you've got your guy, and making sure that you get 2 first-round caliber edge rushers. That's terrific and all. But if you end up... Like, I know, the odds of this probably aren't high, but if there's a world where Jalen Walker and James Pierce Jr. both end up being, like, you know, just fine, like mediocre guys in the NFL, and then that pick next year ends up being pretty good, this is going to look really bad for Atlanta, right? Like, you really are betting on the fact that at least one of those 2 guys ends up being a dude for you. So I think, honestly, I think it's a pretty bad move. I'm not, or at least I'm not a fan of it. Especially, like,
no.
If they had gone in a different direction and picked up another need, like, I can't think of one off the top of my head, but if they tried to fill another hole in their roster, then I would have been able to go, okay, you traded back into it, you got 2 positions of needs, you filled 2 spots, terrific. Instead, they just tried to grab 2 guys who play roughly the same position, and they're just hoping that at least one of them work out. And that's, I mean, you're covering your bases in a way, but I don't know. I don't like it. I don't like that type of move from Atlanta. It seems overly aggressive for not that much upside, but yeah, I guess you never know. If one of them works out, like if one of them becomes a terrific edge rusher in the NFL, then obviously the conversation changes, but no, they're betting on themselves to be good this year, obviously, and I don't know if I'd be doing that with. I mean, Penix has been great, like as from what we saw from him last year.
Yeah.
In his very limited
snaps. 2 or 3 games.
Exactly. In 2 or 3 games. That's the important thing, right? You are betting on 2 or 3 games of Penix, basically. You are relying on the fact that he's not going to have a sophomore slump, or 100 different things could happen when you're in that kind of middle area that Atlanta is. Heck, they picked 15th, right? Like, it's like when you're in that middling area, you can go in either direction. And I think with how many question marks there are in that Atlanta going into next year, I wouldn't have made that move. I definitely wouldn't have. It seems like maybe a little bit too early to be this aggressive, if you ask me.
Yeah, and I agree. The one thing I'll push back on a little bit is to say, like, if you need one of them to work out, like, you're putting a lot of pressure on, I think, just James Pierce to work out with that 26th.
True. No, that's very true.
Jalen Walker at 15 is a fantastic pick. They didn't have to move to get him. Jalen Walker was like a top 10 projected guy. He was commonly picked at like 8 to the Panthers. Ton of talent. He's an in-state guy from Georgia going to Atlanta. Like, it's the perfect fit. Fantastic pick. I think everybody, like, Atlanta could have been one of the winners of the draft without making that trade just for getting Jalen Walker where they did. But to trade back into the first at pick 26 to get James Pierce, thinking about it purely mathematically. So let's say just in terms of, like, pick value. So if you're saying we're going to trade our first round pick next year for the 26th pick, that means you think you're going to fall in that same range. That was the Rams pick, and the Rams almost beat the Eagles in the divisional to go to the Super Bowl. Is that where you think you are? Like, you think you're a divisional round kind of talent? Like, I don't know if you are. Wild card, maybe. But, like, even that is kind of, if the bottom falls out, and you've just given the Rams a golden parachute to get their next quarterback after Stafford, I'm going to hate you forever, Atlanta. Fuck you. Like, come on with that shit.
Yeah.
Puka Nakua rant's going to be nothing on whatever the hellfire I'm going to unleash on the Falcons in 2026 if this happens. But
that, or they must be really high on James Pierce, like significantly higher than we think.
I think they are.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've heard coming out of the draft is that if Jalen Walker was not there at 15, which they didn't anticipate, again, it was a bit of a fall for him, they were going to pick Pierce at 15, which would have been a huge reach, in my opinion. But that's how high they were on him. That's why they traded back in.
I mean,
so maybe they are onto something. But also, I don't think many other people saw it that way. Maybe he was in danger of going to the Commanders at 29. But, like, otherwise, I saw him projected in the second round a ton, like early second round.
I mean,
maybe could have even stuck and picked. Who knows?
The pro comparison I'm seeing on ESPN with him pulled up is Alex Highsmith. And that, doesn't necessarily... Alex Highsmith, great player. Well, fine player.
Yeah, great player.
Fine player.
Yeah, great player.
Yeah. I would not trade my next year first-round pick for Alex Highsmith.
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of I don't know.
I think the thing with Pierce that's tricky is that, again, from everything that I've heard, it's like all the physical talent in the world, but there is character concerns in there, and it's just like a little bit more volatile. It's kind of a boomer bust guy. So you're really hedging your bets, like to give up that kind of draft capital for a bust guy, they must be really, really confident in their convictions that he's going to turn out and going to hit that ceiling. Because otherwise, it doesn't make any sense why you make that trade. Especially because, to transition, looking at what the pick before the Falcons picked James Pierce was also a trade up. And I don't know if the Falcons were just kind of drunk and overpaying, but the Giants also moved up the pick before the Falcons, and they did not have to give up nearly as much. Houston traded away their first-round pick to the Giants in exchange for second and third-round picks this year and a third-round pick next year. Sounds a hell of a lot better.
Yeah, that is significantly better.
And that gave the Giants their potential quarterback of the future in Jackson Dart. Interesting move, and just makes Atlanta look really bad.
Yeah. When that's right there, it certainly doesn't help. And yeah, I don't even know what to say about it, but that really does highlight it really well. It's not often we see the Giants winning situations like this, but yeah, they definitely won out, especially when you compare. Atlanta made the Giants look really good with their move up to get Dart. And it's a move for the Giants that does make sense to a degree, because you're getting your guy who can sit on the bench. You have Russell Wilson, you have Jameis Winston, you're good. Jackson Dart does not even have to, he doesn't even have to be your backup. He's going to be the third string this year, almost without a doubt, which is good for him. I think that's probably the route to take with him. So that allows him to, obviously, you can sit him this year, you get to play him, or you get to sit him behind two guys who have been there and done that, especially Russell Wilson, but even Jameis Winston was he was a starter. So, and that is probably as much as could be said about Jameis Winston. But, yeah, I mean, it's a good move. It's whenever you get it, you're putting a rookie quarterback in a situation where you are not going to need him in that first year. I think that you're making the right move. At this point, that's a pretty proven strategy, and I think I like it a lot for the Giants.
Yeah, it depends how much patience they have.
Yes.
I think when you have a rookie quarterback sitting on the bench and when you're in New York, the calls for Dart are going to get very loud, very fast. I think I think that you're right in terms of the best move is to sit him the whole season, especially because a lot of his issues are like processing issues, something that, a season under Brian Daboll sitting on the bench could probably fix, where it's like, we don't really know, like a lot of it is that with Jackson Dart, you have to make a lot of projection. He's in a system in college where a lot of it is schemed up. He doesn't have to do very much in terms of making reads. And even then, there was sometimes some kind of iffy mistakes in there. in Lane Kiffin's system, and that's where the concern is. All the physical gifts in the world, he can make some of these plays that make your jaw just drop, but it'll also just do something really fucking boneheaded or just not read the play right or panic. That's stuff that can be coached out. How much patience will they have to do that? Not just because of pressure from the fan base, not just because the Giants have a murderer's row of a schedule, and I think Russell Wilson and Jameis are, as much as I hate to say it with Russ, I think they're going to get chewed up and spit out through their schedule that they have. And Jackson Dart is going to be looking real appealing. And also the last part of it is Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen probably want to keep their jobs. I don't remember what the quote was from John Mara, Giants owner, where he was basically saying, "We better get good quick. I'm running out of patience." So, seat's pretty hot. And if you have a first-round quarterback and you're not playing him and then you get fired, it's like, well, what was that all for?
Yeah.
It's good. It would be a great process. It would be a great process if they sat him on the bench, developed him, build up the team around him. That's how you build a contender. The real world works differently sometimes, and that's kind of the fear for me here.
Yeah, and that's the really tough thing, because when I look at that depth chart, I agree with you. Like, I don't think that Russ and Jameis at this point are anywhere near, like, the Giants aren't making the playoffs with a team like that, with a quarterback like Russ. It's probably not going to happen. But I at least hope that between Russ and Jameis, they can fight through the season. Like, I feel like you just have to pretend like you didn't even take Dart. You gotta let him sit. I agree with you. I agree with the sentiment of, if Daboll's job is starting to look a little shaky, then you're probably gonna throw Dart in, and you're gonna see what happens. I just think that'd be a really bad move. Do I think it could happen? Yes, I agree with you, but I think it'd be a poor move.
Yeah. It's going to be tough. Again, patience is going to have to be there. Yeah. You say if Daboll's job is going to be in question. So I mentioned the schedule. Let me just read this to you in terms of some of the... We don't have the schedule, but here are some of the opponents they play. Eagles twice.
Yeah.
Commanders twice. On the road, you have new and improved Chicago Bears, Denver Broncos playoff team, the Lions, and then the division opponents. At home, you have to play the Packers, the Vikings, the Chiefs, the Chargers, the Niners. It's kind of a murderer's row. The only real games that I feel like you have a chance to win are Cowboys twice. There's potential there. Raiders and Patriots on the road. Saints. That's it. I see like 3 wins. Max.
It's a good thing they didn't trade their first-round pick next year to trade up.
Yeah, exactly, right? Like, that's the only good move they probably... That's the one good part of that move, is that they didn't give up the future capital. It's going to be interesting. I think for this move to work out, they have to have patience. They have to commit to Daboll and Joe Schoen pass this year. Will that happen? I don't think so.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree. I just... it's going to be tough, for sure. I think the best possible situation for the Giants is Russell Wilson plays very, very well and plays the whole year, plays all 17 games. That is the best possible situation for the Giants, for sure. And they have to be thinking that in the room, too. Like, they're not drafting Jackson Dart thinking that they want to be relying on him this year at all. If it happens, I guess it happens, but I don't think it would go any better than playing Russ or Jameis. But I don't know. Who knows?
Yeah, no, neither do I. Yeah, like what are you gonna roll Dart out like on the road against the Lions? Like, ooh,
yeah,
yikes.
Exactly. No, it'd be brutal. So yeah, I don't even know. Brutal.
Let's hope for his sake. I think that's a lot of the major storylines of the draft. The one, I don't know if there's anything else you want to hit on before we wrap up here.
No, not really. I mean, we could talk about Ashton Genty.
Ashton Genty, like again, Cam Ward. A lot of these are the more like, fits that were kind of obvious before the draft, and it's great that now that they're here. But yeah, let's talk about Genty and Ward real quick,
Sure.
because I think those are the two main guys that we kind of look at and can say, kind of the two other big names. Starting with Genty, I mean, Pete Carroll's wet dream, really. Like,
Yeah.
Pete Carroll is looking at drafting running backs in like the second round every year in Seattle. To have a guy like Genty fall to him at 6, like the Raiders, as soon as they were on the clock, they probably ran with the card to get that pick in. Like, there was no other possibility. And I think it's going to work out well for them. I mean, he's a hell of a player. That offense is looking better by the minute. And it's really exciting. I mean, like, the Raiders are probably considering how much former Seahawk talent they have on there. Probably going to be my second team going into next year. I think I don't know if they'll be good, but they'll be feisty and they'll be fun, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's a very high pick to take a running back. That is the big thing, right? Even with how hyped Genty was going into this draft, you still heard that. Like, I've seen multiple people bring that up. And it is definitely true. I think it puts a lot of pressure on any running back to be picked this high. Heck, the guy who went towards the end, or at 22, Hampton, to the Chargers, that's another example of a guy who I feel like if you're a running back and you get taken in the first round, there's going to be a lot of pressure. It's just what's going to happen. Because of, I think, the expectation at this point that only elite running backs should be taken in the first round. That's just kind of what's happened in the last little bit. If Genty ends up working out for them, terrific. That's great. I think that it's not a bad pick at all because I don't really know where else they could have really gone with the pick, to be honest with you. But I don't know. It's certainly interesting, that's for sure. I think I like it. I think he's a good fit with the Raiders. Obviously, Pete Carroll likes to run the football. So, I don't know. He'll get his chances there, for sure. He's not going to end up stuck in a depth chart or in an offense that likes to pass a lot. He's in a place where he's going to be given the chance to succeed. So hopefully it works out for him. Because I liked watching all the highlights in college, that's for sure. He seems like a guy who has an endless amount of potential. It's just whether he can hit it.
Yeah, and it's the kind of thing where you're looking at it and you're saying, well, yeah, what are the other alternatives? If they didn't draft him, is Raheem Mostert your starting running back with Sincere McCormick as your backup option behind him?
Yeah.
They were waiting for Genty, and they are glad they got him. So that, yeah, I don't really know if there's anywhere else to go. They're not great yet. There is still definitely places they could have gone. Receiver is rough right now. Jacoby Myers is your number one. They got Jack Besh in the second round, which is a good spot for him. But past that, it's kind of looking rough over there. You got Bowers, which is great, but yeah, definitely still some places to go. But Genty is the kind of premier talent. You talk about only elite running backs go in the first round. Well, Genty is an elite running back. He's on the same tier as some of these guys who have gone in the top 10. Yeah, no. But it's like, you think about some of the other guys who have gone this early, and he is on that same tier. And a lot of them have worked out more or less. They haven't always had the longest careers, like Zeke, where his peak was pretty short. But his peak was fantastic. Same thing with a guy like Todd Gurley, where he was one of the best players in the league for the 4 years that he peaked. And we've seen it more recently with guys like Bijan or Saquon, where they are like these just fantastic talents. And I think we'll see a similar kind of thing at a Genty.
Yeah, and I think the hope has to be, because the funny thing is when I saw the people talking about it, the comparison was made to the Saquon pick by the Giants. And it's certainly a fair one. If Genty ends up turning into a Saquon-type player, the Raiders win. There is not much of a better way this could have gone. But the unfortunate thing is for this pick to work out, for a running back at 6th overall to make sense, he almost needs to be a Saquon-type player in the NFL, which, as much as I love Genty as a prospect, it feels like I don't know. I don't know how much of a sure thing people think that he will be. I sure hope he works out. Maybe I'm talking out of my house.
Yeah, I think there is a certain floor with it. I think you can be as confident as you can be with it. I I hope that the expectations aren't too much, but I don't think they will be. This is a guy who is close to setting the all-time college rushing record. I think that he will be okay. It's not a pick I'm overly concerned about.
Yep.
Another pick I'm not overly concerned about, Cam Ward pick. Again, this is one that was just kind of like, yeah, it's been slotted in since like the season ended, basically. And yeah, he's best quarterback in the draft, and you go to a team that desperately needs a quarterback because Will Levis shenanigans aren't going to happen again, God willing. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I'm a little bit scared that he's not going to play well, just not for any fault of his own, just because that Titans team is a little barren in terms of talent anywhere. Like name me another player on the Titans. Go. Like as you're searching up the depth chart. Frantically.
No. Cam Ward.
There you go.
Didn't Calvin Ridley go there? I don't know.
Oh, there you go. I think he's still. I don't even know.
Yeah. No, honestly, I'm too tired.
Team.
I'm too tired to remember who's on the Titans at this point.
Well, I don't think anybody other than Titans fans can really remember. Because no, there's not a lot of talent there.
Yeah.
Okay, there's the. I won't dunk them too much. Calvin Ridley is there, yes. There's some talent on that defense, like Jeffrey Simmons, L'Jarius Sneed. There's some good pieces there, but otherwise there's not a ton. They got Tyler Lockett before the draft. That's a piece
that's right. That's right. Yeah. Okay.
So we'll see how that works out for them.
There we go.
Yep. There we go. Yeah. Tony Pollard at running back, but
yeah.
No, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. My biggest thing with Cam Ward is just like, please don't expect too much from him. One man can only do so much.
Yeah.
So you hope to see. I think with the Titans, it's like you hope to see improvement. Maybe you're not picking at 1, but you're picking at like 7 or 8. You know, like it's a clear rebuild, but you're frisky. You win a couple games you shouldn't. Cam Ward looks great, and that's a successful season. But it's going to take some time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my only concern is I think he's a little old, honestly, for a first overall pick. I can't remember the last time a goalie went this high. Like, honestly, it's pretty insane to me. He had a terrific hockey career. I'm really happy that he's trying out another profession. I think that's always cool to see. He was terrific for the Hurricanes. We'll have to see what he can do for the Titans.
Yeah. I saw. I don't know if you saw.
I did.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like me. Like
what? He recreated the meme of the guy sitting on the couch sipping a Corona. Did they just draft me?
I mean, with the time, if this pick doesn't work out, he's next on their list. You just replace him. Nobody will notice.
Oh,
nobody will notice.
Oh, I wonder if Cam Ward can throw a football. Let's find out.
Better start practicing.
Oh, Jesus.
I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
For the 2025 NFL Draft, I will lead off by just we won't get into it because I'll go off on a tangent, but I will just say I want to shout out my Seahawks. Great draft, John Schneider. Whatever you are on, cocaine, heroin, I don't know. But whatever drug it is that you're on that makes you take offensive linemen in the first round and not blink at it, do that more often, please. I've never celebrated anything harder than when they took an offensive guard out of North Dakota State. That was fantastic. Thank you, John. Yeah. Thank you.
Don't do drugs, kids. But, John,
unless they're the kind of drugs unless they're the kind of drugs that make you take North Dakota State offensive linemen in the first round, in which case they're great. More, please.
Okay. Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, we need to figure out whatever he's taking, apparently. That's the lesson here. The entire NFL needs to be taking whatever John is taking.
Yep. I really hope that this hype isn't for nothing. I've never been more excited for a Seahawks draft class than this one. No running backs in the second round for no god awful reasons. No reaches on like receivers I've never heard of in the third round. Like no just like random bullshit trading back and draft like fucking Jermaine Ifedi. Like nothing of no shenanigans. This is great. I was like, am I dreaming? What the fuck? You know,
hey, it's not too late. It's not too late for them to switch Dalen Miller to a running back. You never know.
Oh God, is that why? Fuck. Oh shit.
You never know what they're thinking in that room. That guy just ran like a 4.3. Sir.
Pete Carroll demons are coming back. Banish them. Banish them. No
Put
more.
2 gloves on, buddy. We're sending you straight down the middle.
No. No, I believe. You can never take my belief away from me.
Yeah.
Never.
Don't do drugs, kids. Unless you want to draft really well.